I'm Alma Arara Mountain, and the year my life split clearly into before and after was the year I turned 13. If I had to name the exact moment my family decided I would fade into the background of my own story, it wasn't a it wasn't a long realization. It was a sticky note left on the fridge. Stack in a week. Lack in a wheel. No signature. No reason. Just my mother's neat handwriting, careful and distant. They left for Florida the morning of my birthday. My older sister, Jasmine Mountain, posted a photo with her pink suitcase and a cheerful caption about family time. My younger sister, Lily Mountain, followed with palm tree emojis. I sat on the porch with my backpack resting on my knees, sure the note was temporary and that someone would come. An aunt, a neighbor, some kind of luck. No one did. The streetlights came on, and a dog barked at me as if I didn't belong on my own steps. I heated a burrito I didn't even like and ate it at the counter, pretending the microwave's hum was conversation. By the second day, I told myself it was a mistake. By the fourth, another thought crept in, one I tried to ignore. Maybe it wasn't. Being the middle child had always meant acting as the quiet space between the star and the finale. Jasmine earned awards and varsity letters. Lily had dance recitals, braces, and themed birthday parties. I had responsibility, which adults often used as another word for invisible. But being left behind on purpose created a different kind of quiet. 6 days in, I left the library with a stack of borrowed books piled high like protection. The heat wavered so hard it blurred even my shadow. That was when a glossy black car slowed beside the curb, its windows lowering like something from a life that wasn't mine. Alma? Surprise colored a voice I almost recognized. It was Uncle Richard, the wealthy one who stopped attending family gatherings before I was old enough to remember multiplication. My mother called him conceited, which I now understand meant he kept firm boundaries. His eyes moved over my backpack, my sweat-damp hair, and the tight smile I used as armor. "Why are you out here alone? Where are your parents?" "Florida," I said. The word sounded unreal, like saying they had gone to another planet. "And you're here," he murmured, more to himself than to me. Whatever followed sounded like a thought I wasn't meant to hear. Then he said, "Get in. You're not walking anywhere tonight." Every warning about strangers ran through my head. But my empty stomach, after 3 nights of instant noodles and one of dry cereal, offered a louder argument. Hunger is its own kind of risk. The car smelled of leather and something clean and sharp. Not cologne, just the scent of money that hadn't aged. He drove us to a diner with cracked red booths and pies under glass domes. When the burger and milkshake arrived, I stared at them as if they might disappear if I looked away. He didn't rush me. He let me eat, then asked about school, about friends, about what mattered to me. "History," I said, "mostly the parts people get wrong." That answer made him smile slightly, as if he had learned something important. When we reached my street, he didn't park. He left the engine running and told me to pack a bag. I stared at him. "What? You're not staying alone in a dark house while your parents shop for sunscreen. Pack, Alma." Some moments open the world as if it has hidden hinges. His home felt like another place entirely. The guest bed looked too soft to touch. I sat carefully on the edge, afraid to wrinkle the blanket. He leaned against the doorway, eyebrow raised, and I whispered that I didn't want to ruin his sheets. "They can be washed," he said, smiling without sarcasm. "Things are meant to be used, not feared." Morning came with orange juice poured into a real glass. At home, our cups were faded souvenirs that still smelled faintly of plastic. I held the glass like it might shatter if I breathed wrong. "It's just juice, not a contract," he said lightly. "Drink." When my teacher asked who would attend my meeting that week, he answered without hesitation, "I will." The steadiness of those words loosened something that had been tight for months. I didn't know how to accept kindness. When he bought me jeans and a sweater, I hid the tags, sure he would want them back. When he gave me lunch money, I saved it and ate crackers instead, because spending felt like crossing a line. It took 12 days before he found me in the kitchen at midnight, crouched over a box of cereal. "Why?" he asked from the doorway. "Are you training to be a raccoon?" I told him I didn't want to take too much. He opened the fridge, scooped pasta into a bowl, heated it, and slid it toward me. "If it's in this house, it belongs to everyone who lives here," he said. "That includes you." I nodded, swallowing the tight feeling in my throat, determined not to let tears fall into the food. Crying felt excessive, and I didn't want to feel like I owed him. I kept expecting the front door to rattle with my parents' return, for them to demand I come back like something borrowed for too long. But the days continued. Then weeks passed. No knock, no call. Jasmine filled her feed with beach photos and captions about lifelong sisterhood. Lily posed with shells pressed to her cheek. My name never appeared under any of it. Uncle Richard went with me to the school conference. The counselor sat on a metal chair and used words like quiet, potential, and underengaged. He didn't argue. He wrote things down. Afterward, he bought me a desk so I wouldn't have to study on the floor. He scheduled an eye exam I didn't know I needed. Then came the dentist, the doctor, a haircut, basic care I hadn't realized was standard. He never once said I owed him. He called it maintenance, as if I were something worth keeping in good condition. At 13, I still tested boundaries. One Saturday, I stayed out late with a friend, forgetting to text because I didn't know what counted as curfew. When I slipped in around midnight, bracing for anger, he handed me a sandwich. "Glad you're alive," he said. "Next time, send a text. Otherwise, I'll assume you're in a ditch and go buy a shovel." His calm voice was more unsettling than yelling. It sounded like concern, but with structure. Not everything was rules or schedules. Sometimes he took me to his office and told me to watch how people spoke to each other. "Half of success is tone and a handshake," he said once, gripping a client's hand. "The rest is showing up when everyone else makes excuses." He said it casually, but it stayed with me, like directions. That first holiday in his house, I expected a simple card and polite approval. Instead, he gave me a leather-bound journal with my initials stamped in gold. "Write down what you notice," he said. "Even the silly things, especially those." I ran my fingers over the cover, half afraid it was too much. I said thank you, though it came out stiff. I wasn't used to owning anything that felt permanent. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A photo of my parents, Jasmine and Lily, in matching pajamas beside a perfect tree. The caption read, "Mountain Traditions." No tag, no message, not even a "we miss you." I stared until the image blurred into light and color. Then I looked at the journal on my lap and opened to the first blank page. I wrote, "Things here are meant to be used, not feared." Then, if something is inside this house, it belongs to everyone who lives here. Finally, I am in this house. The sentences felt too firm, like I'd borrowed someone else's confidence. Still, when I closed the cover and traced my initials again, something small moved inside me. It wasn't safety, not yet, but maybe the outline of it, lightly sketched. I didn't know then that the diner booth and that small book would become the turning points for everything. Years later, in rooms that smelled of leather and law, those pages would steady me when others lost balance. For now, I was just 13, wrapped in sheets that smelled clean instead of worn, learning a truth that felt impossible. I wasn't disposable. I hadn't been forgotten, only misplaced, and someone had finally found me and set me where I fit. By the time I turned 14, Uncle Richard had reached two conclusions. First, my posture was terrible. Second, beneath that slouch, I carried potential. He tapped my shoulder whenever I folded inward. "Stand tall, Alma. You're not punctuation. People trust you more when you look like you already trust yourself." At first, it sounded like something off a poster. Over time, I caught myself straightening mid-slump, acting confident until it started to feel natural. Teachers noticed. I spoke more, raised my hand, and joined debate club after he bribed me with pizza. At my first competition, my voice shook like a faulty speaker, but I still won, arguing that cats made better pets. When the judge announced it, I saw Uncle Richard in the back, smiling the quiet smile that said, "I told you so." At home, he wasn't just a guardian. He was a set of lessons hidden in daily routines. He never lectured about effort or gratitude. He demonstrated them. When I asked for a new phone, he said, "Sounds good. How much have you saved?" I stared. "Nothing." "Then you'll value it more once you earn it." So I got my first job bagging groceries. My first paycheck read 731.16, and I waved it like a prize. He didn't take it. He drove me to the bank instead. "Two-part rule," he said. "Save half, spend half. That way you enjoy today without stealing from tomorrow." I rolled my eyes then, but later I understood that sentence became the framework for everything I built. Holidays used to fill me with dread. Family dinners felt like performances I was never cast in. At Uncle Richard's, Christmas moved at a quieter pace, but it felt fuller in a more honest way. His gifts weren't lavish, just thoughtful. A worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, a fountain pen that had weight to it, a scarf he claimed matched my debate face. Meanwhile, my phone kept lighting up with photos from the mountains. My parents, Jasmine and Lily, posing near palm trees and carefully styled tables that looked ready for a magazine spread. No one ever wrote, "Wish you were here." The hurt was still there, but it no longer hollowed me out the way it once had. Instead, it reminded me that I was learning what family could be when it wasn't performative. One Christmas, he handed me a small box. Inside was a silver keychain engraved with Mountain and Carlton. "A work in progress," he said. I looked at him, confused. "A work in progress?" He smiled. "That's what both of us are. You're learning how to build. I'm learning not to do it alone." I didn't know how to respond, so I hugged him. It was awkward, like two people trying to recall a language they hadn't spoken in years, but he didn't pull away first. That night, I wrote in my journal, "You don't need shared blood to share a home." By 16, he started taking me to his office during the summers. I was nervous. The pressed suits, polished desks, and people who moved as if gravity followed different rules unsettled me. During introductions, he leaned in and whispered, "Relax. They put their pants on one leg at a time. Some of them fall over doing it." I laughed, and the fear eased. That became our phrase whenever I felt small. "One leg at a time, kid." He taught me things school never covered. Listen before responding. Pay attention to what people mean, not just what they say. Shake hands like you intend to be remembered. "Half the world bluffs," he told me once. "The other half apologizes for existing. Learn to do neither." That was the first time I thought my future could be about more than just getting by. At 17, the gap between where I started and where I stood felt sharp. Jasmine posted college acceptance photos and tagged everyone except me. Lily posed beside her new car, captioned, "Thanks, Mom and Dad," her smile as glossy as the paint. I stared at the screen while Uncle Richard brewed tea and said quietly, "They don't even check in. Not a single text. Not even on your birthday." He didn't look at me when he asked, "How long do you plan to wait for them to remember you?" The question broke the silence cleanly. I didn't answer, and he didn't push. That night, I stopped waiting for the mountains to turn back. I started the slower work of remembering myself. During senior year, he gave me a small box before prom. Inside was a thin silver bracelet engraved with a small A. "Don't chase approval, Alma," he said. "Chase peace. Approval is borrowed. Peace is yours to keep." I didn't realize then how important that line would become. I joked that he sounded like a fortune cookie. He laughed and said, "Then make sure you open it before it goes stale." That night, under strings of lights and a DJ who favored volume over rhythm, I laughed freely. No invisible pull dragging me back, no note taped to a fridge saying "back in a week." Just me. Alma Mountain. Incomplete, but real. College had never been part of the plan my parents imagined for me. Jasmine was the achiever with scholarships. Lily was the favorite with trophies and praise. I was expected to be practical, which was family shorthand for "don't expect much." Without Uncle Richard, I might have accepted that ceiling. He didn't simply pay tuition. He made me earn every piece. We spent hours at the kitchen table surrounded by spreadsheets, loan guides, and financial aid forms until the numbers blurred. "Scholarships first, grants second," he said. "My help fills gaps, not foundations." So I searched. There was a scholarship for left-handed students. I spent 2 weeks teaching myself to write with my left hand. Another was for descendants of beekeepers. I wrote about the balance between bees and humans, despite my only real experience being running from one in 3rd grade. Piece by piece, I stitched together a future. When the letter from Western Summit University arrived, he studied it like a contract he'd negotiated himself. "Congratulations," he said, steady and proud. "Now go prove them right." Move-in day was loud and crowded. Parents hauling boxes, balloons floating, tears everywhere. Mine didn't come. No message. No good luck. Uncle Richard carried everything up 3 flights in the August heat and refused to let me lift the heavy boxes. "This counts as my annual workout," he joked. When the room was finally set, I looked around at the mismatched bedding, the thrift store lamp, the faint smell of bleach, and felt something twist in my chest. He noticed. "Don't look for them here, Alma," he said softly. "Look forward. That's where you're going. Before he left, he gave me an envelope. Inside was a note in his neat block handwriting. If you ever doubt you belong, check your reflection. You got here without them. I taped it inside my planner and kept it there all 4 years. The first months were hard. I felt like I didn't belong in any room I entered. I was still the girl in secondhand shoes, carrying detergent-scented bags instead of designer ones. But Uncle Richard called every Sunday without fail, sometimes just to joke. So Miss Dean's list, he'd say. Still surviving on ramen and stubbornness? Barely, I'd answer. Good, he'd reply. Struggle keeps you sharp. That routine grounded me. His voice had weight. It kept me steady. In my sophomore year, I met Ethan Cole, someone who could make a room relax without trying. We met while volunteering at a community garden. He was genuinely planting things. I was pretending I knew how to use a shovel. He offered to show me, and I rolled my eyes but accepted. Months later, we started dating, slowly and deliberately, but it was real. Ethan wasn't the rescuer type. He didn't try to fix me. He respected me, and that mattered more than I expected. One night during finals, he asked why I double-checked everything, even small details. I paused, then said, because for a long time, I was the problem no one corrected. He didn't give empty reassurance. He just took my hand and said, then let's make sure no one overlooks you again. That was when I knew he truly saw me, not as the forgotten middle child, but as someone who had built her own place. By junior year, the past resurfaced. Sabrina, Ethan's ex, the kind of person who could turn regret into performance, started appearing at campus events again. She smiled, complimented my clothes, and scanned the room like it was a stage. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Then one night, she mentioned that Ethan had met her for coffee to help with a business idea. When I asked him, he told me directly. She'd reached out, he said, asking for advice. He hadn't thought it mattered. It shouldn't have, but that old feeling of being replaced returned without warning. Uncle Richard's words echoed in my head. Half the world bluffs. The other half apologizes for existing. Do neither. So I didn't accuse, and I didn't beg. I said, next time, let her find someone else's generosity. Ethan agreed without argument. That quiet response told me everything. By senior year, things finally felt aligned. I earned my civil engineering degree, the field Uncle Richard once described as building what lasts. He sat in the front row at graduation, clapping so loudly the dean paused. Afterward, he handed me a simple silver pen. Use this to sign contracts you'll be proud of, he said. I smiled and joked, not my autograph. He laughed. One day, build first, celebrate later. That night, while others went out, I stayed in my dorm rereading the journal he'd given me at 13. It was full now. Notes, small wins, quiet gratitude. One line stood out. If it's in this house, it belongs to the people in this house. That house wasn't a place anymore. It was my life, and for the first time, I felt fully inside it. After graduation, I joined a small engineering firm. It wasn't flashy, but it was stable, and it was mine. Ethan found work in the same city, and for once, the future felt self-directed. Every Friday, Uncle Richard and I met for dinner. He'd raise his glass and say, "Look at you, Miss Mountain, climbing without falling." I'd laugh and say, "Give it time." What I didn't want to see were the changes. The tiredness in his voice, the way he rubbed his shoulder after carrying groceries, the pause before recalling familiar details. I told myself it was age. I didn't realize it was the beginning. Strong people don't always fall suddenly. Sometimes they fade slowly and quietly until you notice you're holding what they once carried. It started subtly, the kind of shift you choose not to examine. Uncle Richard began canceling our Friday dinners, blaming heavy workloads, words I'd never heard from him before. One evening, I stopped by unannounced and found him asleep in his chair at 8, the TV murmuring to itself. When I touched his shoulder, he startled awake and smiled too quickly. "Long day," he said. "Must have closed my eyes too long." The smile didn't reach his eyes. Soon there were more signs. Pill bottles on the counter, a slight tremor when he poured coffee, repeating the same story in one night. I noticed. He noticed that I noticed, and together we silently agreed not to name it. Still, he checked on me, steady and calm, the same way he always had when I was learning how to build a life from what was left. "You're doing well at work," he told me once after I complained about a difficult client. "Just remember, jobs replace you in a week. People won't. if you choose the right ones. That line landed harder than any evaluation I'd ever received. I didn't realize then it was his way of preparing me for a future where he might not be around to say it. Months passed. My career picked up speed. My footing felt steady. Ethan and I settled into a balance that worked. His marketing role, my engineering projects, both moving forward. Still, every time Richard brushed off a cough or dismissed my concern, that sense of stability cracked a little more. Then it happened. A Tuesday. The phone rang. A trembling voice said, "Miss Mountain, this is Grace from Mr. Carlton's office. He collapsed during a meeting. They've taken him to St. Luke's Hospital." The drive was a blur, red lights streaking past, my heart beat loud in my ears. When I reached his room, he looked small against the white walls. Yet when he saw me, he managed a crooked smile. "Don't look so grim," he rasped. "Told them I wanted a free stay, 5-star if you ignore the food." I tried to laugh, but my throat burned. "You scared me," I whispered. He shrugged weakly. "First time for everything." Then softer, "Sit, kid." He waited until the room quieted, just machines humming and footsteps beyond the door. "You know," he said, voice rougher than I'd ever heard, "I always thought your father would be the one teaching you these things. How to stand straight, manage money, argue without shouting. But I'm glad it was me." "Don't talk like that," I said. "Like what?" "Like your." I couldn't finish. He gave that familiar half smile, the one that eased everything. "Honest," he said, taking my hand, which he rarely did. "You've surpassed every expectation anyone ever set for you, Alma. Remember one thing." "What?" "You're not the extra piece. You never were." My vision blurred. I blinked hard. He noticed and smirked. "If you soak these sheets, you're paying the cleaning bill." I laughed, the sound breaking halfway through. For a moment, it felt normal again. He stayed in the hospital a few days, then returned home slower, quieter, still acting like nothing had changed. We never spoke about the scare, but we both knew something had shifted. That final Christmas, he gave me a gold-wrapped box. Inside was the same leather journal he'd given me at 13. Only now every page was filled. Notes, advice, jokes, rough sketches, even restaurant receipts taped in with comments like "Best Burger of 2014. Still not worth the calories. The last page stopped me. His handwriting shook but stayed clear. "If they ever try to erase you again, remember this. You've already written your own chapter." I looked up, my throat tight. "You've been writing in this all these years?" He shrugged. "Couldn't let you have all the good lines." I hugged him. No caution, just held on. He chuckled. "Easy, you'll crack a rib." I stayed there a moment longer, knowing somehow it would be the last time I'd hear that laugh in the same room. When the call came months later, I didn't answer right away. It was early. The world still quiet. The phone buzzed again, then a third time. Grace's voice broke. "Miss Mountain, I'm so sorry. Richard passed away in his sleep this morning." The world went silent, like someone turned the volume all the way down. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at the wall as if focus alone could reset everything. He was supposed to be fine. He was supposed to keep joking about age and cholesterol, not vanish overnight. The days that followed blurred together. Calls, paperwork, funeral plans. He'd named me executor. Of course he had. No one else knew the details that mattered. Which tie he called his serious one. Which songs made him wince. How much he hated lilies and preferred simple white roses. The service was small and understated, exactly as he would have wanted. Old friends, a few colleagues, and the people who truly mattered. I stood near his photo, nodding through condolences that sounded distant, like I was underwater. Then they walked in. My parents, Jasmine, Lily, entering the chapel as if it were an event. My mother hid behind oversized black sunglasses. My father shook hands, speaking solemnly about what a loss it was, despite not speaking to Richard in 15 years. When they saw me, their faces shifted. Shock, guilt, calculation. "Alma," my mother said, gripping my hand, "we had no idea you and Richard were so close." I pulled my hand back gently. "You never asked." My father cleared his throat, slipping into the practiced tone he used for speeches and negotiations. "Your uncle was an exceptional man, generous, accomplished, and always part of the family." That last word nearly made me laugh. Family. Jasmine's voice followed, smooth and polished, soft sugar over hard steel. "So do you know when the will reading is?" I mean, Uncle Richard lived comfortably. Lily released an overdone sigh, adjusting her pearl earrings. I just hope he wanted us to keep the family legacy intact. The house, the cars, everything. For a moment, I questioned whether I was dreaming or stuck inside a cruel performance. He hadn't even been laid to rest, and they were already orbiting the inheritance like scavengers drawn to fresh remains. I didn't respond. I turned and walked away. Within days, the messages poured in: texts, voicemails, social requests. My mother's voice arrived coated in false warmth. Honey, we should really reconnect. Family is all we have. Then Jasmine appeared in my DMs. We should discuss estate matters soon. Lily followed with an emoji that tried to dress grief as style. Not long after, Uncle Richard's attorney, Mr. Halpern, called. The will reading is scheduled for Monday morning, he said. It may be eventful. Your uncle was very clear about his wishes. I allowed a small smile, fingers brushing the worn edge of my journal. If they ever tried to erase you again, they were about to learn what happens when quiet is mistaken for weakness. I was ready to keep my promise, to myself and to the man who taught me how to stand straight. The law office smelled of leather, old wealth, and the muted satisfaction of order. Heavy curtains, dark wood, chairs designed to enforce perfect posture. The room carried a hush where every breath felt recorded. Mr. Halpern sat at the head of a long mahogany table. My family occupied the opposite side. My parents, Jasmine and Lily, dressed for an expensive morning. My mother dabbed at tears that never fell with designer tissues. My father folded his hands like a preacher awaiting donations. Jasmine's phone glowed under the table, and Lily leaned in to whisper, "Do you think he left us the house?" I sat across from them, journal on my lap, heart steady, wearing a plain black dress, no statement pieces, no armor. I didn't need any. Halpern cleared his throat. We are here to review the last will and testament of Richard Carleton. His voice was measured and exact. He covered the formalities, debts resolved, modest charitable gifts, provisions for long-term staff. My family shifted, forcing patience, practically humming with anticipation. Then he turned the page, addressing the remainder of the estate. Jasmine leaned forward, diamonds catching the light. Lily clasped her hands as if awaiting a blessing. My father glanced at me with a brief smirk, half pity, half threat. Halpern read carefully, each word sharp as cut glass. To my estranged relatives, who remembered me only when my finances suited them, I leave nothing. The silence split the room. My mother gasped. Jasmine's jaw dropped. Lily blinked, frozen. "He's joking, right?" she whispered. Halpern continued without pause and turned another page. To my niece, Alma Mountain, abandoned at 13 but never absent since, I leave the entirety of my estate, all assets, properties, accounts, and holdings. For one suspended moment, no one breathed. Then, together, 4 pairs of eyes fixed on me. Jasmine broke first, her voice tight and shaking. "That's impossible." He barely knew her. I kept my voice even. "He knew me for 15 years. You just stopped noticing." My father's face burned red. "You manipulated him. You turned him against his family." I placed my palm on the journal, fingertips tracing the softened leather. "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourselves? The day you left me with a note on the refrigerator." Lily shifted into practiced sweetness. "Come on, Alma. You're not really going to keep everything, are you? We're family." That word again, family. I took a slow breath and smiled. Not cruel, not smug, just tired. "Funny," I said. 15 years of silence doesn't look much like family, but now that money's involved, suddenly we're related again. Mr. Halpern closed the folder with a soft, final snap. "The will is airtight," he said. "Mr. Carleton was very specific. Any contest will be dismissed immediately." My mother started to speak, then stopped herself. The disbelief on their faces hardened into anger, the same expression they'd worn years earlier when they realized I no longer needed their approval to exist. I straightened the front of my dress and stood. "If you'll excuse me, I have matters to handle." "Mr. Halpern, thank you for your time." Jasmine muttered, "This isn't over." I met her eyes calmly. "It ended when you stopped calling me your sister." Then I turned and left. Outside, the air felt different, cooler, clearer, as if the world had been holding its breath and finally released it. Sunlight reflected off the building's glass front, briefly blinding me. In that moment, I saw myself clearly. Not the frightened 13-year-old with a backpack waiting for someone who never arrived, but a woman standing firmly where she chose to be. I took out my phone, opened my messages, and found the contact I still wished was real. "Wish you were here to see their faces, old man," I typed. After a pause, I added, "You were right. I wrote my own chapter. I sent it to nowhere and everywhere." Later that week, I stood on the balcony of Richard's house, my house now, watching the city lights pulse like the heartbeat of everything he had built and left behind. I held the journal and turned again to its final page. The ink had faded slightly, but the words remained clear. If they ever try to erase you again, remember this. You've already written your own chapter. I smiled. I did, I whispered, and I'll keep writing. I wasn't thinking about money, deeds, or assets. I was thinking about the 13-year-old girl on a porch, gripping a backpack and a note from the fridge, wondering what she had done wrong. If I could speak to her now, I'd say this. One day, you'll have a home that never treats you like a guest, a life that doesn't apologize for taking up space, and a name no one ignores. Ethan stepped onto the balcony and slipped an arm around my shoulders. "You okay?" I nodded, leaning into him. "Yeah, it just feels complete." He looked out over the city below. "He'd be proud of you." I lifted my face toward the open sky above the skyline. "I think he already is." Below us, the city lights moved like turning pages. And for the first time, the story belonged entirely and unmistakably to me.